Framing is the main theme for this tutorial here, and of course it's more making of, so I want to talk about my experience, and that is maybe a little bit special, but I hope you can have some advantages from it for your own work. What I want to discuss here is, of course, the background footage. In this way here, we have nearly no real movement, but I have always the impression that real footage is a little bit more real than just in photo, even if there's only micro movement or some heat or something like that. So the problem is, of course, when we put footage in the background and we want to have real footage here, maybe perhaps there are streets in the background or whatever, then we need sometimes a huge resolution, because when we want to finally produce like this picture here in 4K, then we should have a background that fits to this. And when we take a look here, we go from here where Hollywood is in the field, and then we go out, and that is maybe here roughly 6 or 7K already, and that's pretty large. And of course, how to get those stuff. And we don't want to have this background here as a camera move, because that would determine then our final result here. We could just 3D track the whole footage and then place here this frame inside. And of course, the scene was a little bit different, and it's exactly the same scene like in the last frame, in the last scene or clip. And there is a building underneath. So I want to frame this, and then we have a completely different background, whatever. What I want to discuss here, how to get this. And for that, I switch over to a completely different application. So I stay here in Red Cine X Pro 16. And maybe when you see this tutorial, maybe we have already 17 or 18 or even have 20 or whatever. It goes really fast with Red. So these numbers here are mostly old when you see a 1 week old tutorial or so. Just kidding. So what I have here is, of course, I wanted to avoid to have any limitations in my footage. That means I wanted to have here, as you can see, it's a 4K image. And this contains not all the footage that we need. So I have here, for example, another one that fits exactly. And you take a look here maybe to this little area. This footage here is then connected here. And I can, when you have a look to this area here, I can go even further if I like so, and I can do this all day long. So I have shot this in the way I shoot panoramas. That means I have my nodal point in mind, and of course this is footage. This works here very nicely because there's nearly no movement inside. There's a little bit flaring and a little bit noise and all of that. But in the moment we would have here maybe a highway, we have maybe a problem with continuity in it. That is always a question of creativity, how to solve those things. Maybe you shoot many of these and then find an area where you can put this all together. However, the idea was here to have footage that I can stitch together. I have done this in After Effects, found here an area where I could just cut, and then I tested with photos, just with simple JPEGs. In Cinema 4D the background that I need, and then I could say exactly what I need from the footage. So just to toss in maybe 8K footage, which is huge when you render this out in RGB, and we don't want to just do it for fun to make everything big. So I put in Cinema 4D JPEGs so I could see it, put it back into After Effects so I could see exactly this is what I need. And then even stitched together, I could minimize the file size. Makes that sense? I hope so. So let's hop over to Cinema 4D to see what happens there. The idea here is, of course, to have freedom in the framing. And that means you set up your camera for this shot in a way you like. And you want to have, of course, exactly a lot of stuff left, right, up and down of the background, so you can move your camera in the way you want. You open the angle of view in the way you want, or you close it more. And that is very important, and enough resolution, of course. This leads normally to huge background images, and as I have shown, I wanted to have red footage in the background. In this case, it would have been a huge file. And of course, I put it inside of Cinema 4D, and it slowed everything a little bit down, to be honest. And the next step was, of course, how to optimize now exactly my result after I have finalized my camera. And that is pretty simple. You go to the first frame here, of course. That gives you, in this case, as the camera move is here, as you can see, it's very short. It gives you one corner of the image, that was the left upper here. And then you move the camera here along, and then this guy comes in that I don't want to see here at the moment, so I switch it off for a moment. And then I can see I have a pretty linear movement here, and the right lower corner here is exactly this. Why is it here white? I have cut it here because I didn't need it. And the truth is, when we go here to this point, you might see exactly what I have in mind. Here is the first point where we stop seeing anything from that. And there's maybe here a tiny little white thingy, but you won't see it later on. And so I optimized that exactly in the way I needed it. So I switched the billboard, the BB, back out. And so I could say I need here this area. And to do this, the simple step is render out this picture. It mustn't be any high quality, JPEG, 8-bit, whatever. Even black and white would be fine if that would help. And so these guys here go then in After Effects, and you line them exactly up where you are in After Effects. So you have a measurement exactly where you need material. And my tip is, when you have a camera move that moves maybe a little bit up and down, or have a curvy behavior, then do maybe one rendering here and wherever it is needed when it doesn't go linear. So these pictures then on top of the footage that you have, and it gives you an idea where you need information and where you don't need information. So you can crop your background footage in a way you need it, and you can render out then the optimized smaller version exactly for the background. Back in Cinema 4D, you line up the old against the new one. That needs perhaps a little scale, but that is texture work that should be pretty simple, and then you have here exactly what you need. The idea here was to deliver in HD, because we had no other idea to screen it in a big cinema or so. So HD was here the idea, and for the background I have here, funny enough, exactly 4K in need. But of course, as red footage is, the raw footage should be 30% scaled down to get really the best quality. So it's not always 30%. But the rule of thumb is, if you have 5K, scale it down to 4 to get really 4K. If you have maybe the need for HD, you should have 2.5 or 3K even to get the best result. So always a little bit over the top is better than to have bad quality. And I wanted to have for the start the best, because there I have to convince everyone this thing has quality and it doesn't come later. You have to be happy from the first start. And the first picture that I had here in, that was not really something where I was proud of. It was shot with a Casio 1000. Here was the resolution 7166, but it was only 8-bit and it looked blurry. And I can show you that here, that was not really something where I was happy with. Same picture here, a little bit scaled here at the moment. That's not a problem. But also here I have made a sky replacement, but the quality was not really the same. So I went back to Hollywood with the red camera, shot again, and this was finally what made me happy. The major theme here was freedom in framing, and the freedom in framing is very important, because when you are on a computer, you have no pressure like on a set. You have no pressure that some people maybe want to see a filming license, that you can use that space where you are. And so just get some shots, 10 seconds each, stitch them together and have the whole freedom that you like. That was the idea here. After the timing, now we have the framing. In the next part, I discuss the next freedom. See you there.